Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Then, Now, and the Future. And today we're going to talk about public speaking. And this is particularly because that's what Marcus does. So without further ado, I'm just going to ask Marcus to sort of introduce us to this topic.
Peter, thank you. And yeah, public speaking, it's about communication, isn't it? It's about, my entire career, I suppose, has been about communication. I started life as a journalist. I moved into a career in public relations. I now work as a life coach and a public speaking coach. So I guess my entire career has been based around communication. And speaking is something that we all do. But there's a Grand Canyon-sized gulf between being a talker and being a eloquent. And
yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've really developed this skill over the years. So perhaps you could help us telling how it all started.
When I was 11 years old, I guess, when I first went to my senior school, I went to a comprehensive school in London called Woodbury Down Comprehensive. It was the first purpose-built comprehensive school in London. And once a week, we would have an assembly of the entire school. And that was about 1,600 pupils. And the assembly hall was like a huge theatre with a balcony that ran three sides of the building that was tiered, fixed tiered seating on the lower floor, a big apron stage that jutted right out into the auditorium. And on that stage would be the senior teachers, and although it was a comprehensive school, they'd all be capped and gowned. There'd be the head boy and the head girl, and there would be one pupil whose job it was to do a Bible reading to the school. And for some reason, the drama teacher who was tasked with organising the kids who did the Bible readings spotted me and included me in that group. So I guess it was something like 6 months into my first year at secondary school, I had to go up on that stage, or be sat up on that stage in front of an audience of 1,600 kids and do a Bible reading. And it was one of those very old, very thick Bibles on a big stand. And I came up to about there, totally intimidating.
Yeah, so it sounds like a very impressive environment to be in, a very large-scale performing environment to be in.
Well, as your first effort at public speaking, and in fairness, the drama teacher, a lady called Miss Davis, who I had through my entire school career and who I absolutely idolised, did give us coaching. So we'd be taken into the empty assembly hall and stood up on the stage, and she would stand at the back of the hall and talk to us about projecting our voices. And there's a difference between projecting and shouting, telling us how to handle the audience. And this might be of interest because it was advice and coaching that she gave to me when I was 11 years old. It has stuck with me ever since. The Bible reading came after us, a psalm. So I'd have to walk up to the Bible, and she said to me, "Marcus, everyone's just sung a psalm. So what you do is this: you wait until everyone has sat down. You wait until everybody has settled and stopped shuffling around. You wait until they're looking at you and only you. And then and only then do you start speaking." And that took a lot, because it feels like, when you're stood up on this stage in front of this huge audience, it feels like forever, and, at what point do I think they're now all looking at me? At what point should I start speaking?
And do we still live in a world where people would actually stop? I'm just wondering now.
Well, you know what? That advice is as true now as it was then. I do a lot of networking. I get the opportunity to do a lot of talks at those networking meetings, and a lot of those meetings are on Zoom. I stand up to do my talks. I come from the school of thought that says if you're a speaker, you stand to speak.
Right.
And it doesn't matter whether you're on Zoom or whether you're in a face-to-face meeting.
Okay.
So even though we're on Zoom, I stand.
Okay.
And when I'm introduced, I wait. Because you can see on the screen whether people are looking at you or not, or whether they're looking at their phones or whatever it might be. So that advice is as true now, and it's as true if we're on Zoom. I wait and I make sure that the people in that room, because you don't start speaking straight away, everyone automatically looks up and go, oh, okay, what's going on? Why
yeah. Okay. Okay. So how did your speaking career proceed from those early days?
Not for a long time, really. I took a severe knockback from my drama teacher. I used to go to her after-school drama classes, and I was really into drama. And I confided in her one day and said, Miss Davis, when I leave school, I think I'd like to be an actor. And she looked at me and she put her hand on my shoulder and she put her head to one side. And as gently as she could, she said, Marcus, have you ever considered the civil service?
Oh, there's a bit of a contrast there, isn't it?
So my hopes were somewhat dashed. And you know what? She wasn't far wrong. I left school and went into journalism, and I had a career in journalism for local and national newspapers.
Yeah.
For about 12 years or so. But I did move then into a career in public relations, and that career was in local government.
Okay.
So when I look back, I tend to think, you know what, maybe she wasn't that far wrong.
It was a sort of hybrid, really, wasn't it? It wasn't the sort of driest form of civil service.
Yeah, and it was PR. So I guess my career has always been about communications. Certainly initially sort of written communication, but the more I worked in PR, I used to coach politicians and senior managers around media interviewing techniques. I used to coach them around sort of presentation skills.
Yes.
How do you take really quite complex subjects and simplify them so that you can present them in an interesting way that people can grasp hold of. So I was moving gradually, I suppose, more into the verbal communication side of things.
Okay, so how did it become sort of full-blown public speaking, the kind of thing that you do now?
Right. So I took the opportunity to take voluntary redundancy from my local government job, moved into a career in life coaching initially, and my wife and I went on a cruise, and on these cruise ships they have huge theatres and they have guest speakers. And I said to my wife, I'm going to go and listen to this speaker. It's probably not the sort of thing you're interested in, but I'd just like to go and see how he does it. And this was a guy who'd worked for Interpol dealing with international drugs. And his material was really interesting, but the presentation was awful. It was death by PowerPoint. He stood hidden behind a podium, and the theatre was packed. And people seemed to love it. And I said to my wife, you know what? I'd love to do what he's just done. And you know what? I think I could do it as well, if not better than him. And I did a bit of research and found out what the requirements were to be a speaker on a cruise ship. And I thought it wouldn't hurt for me to perhaps hone some of my speaking skills. So I did some more research about public speaking organisations and came across Toastmasters International, found, found a club fairly near me joined and suddenly discovered that there was a whole bunch of stuff about public speaking that I didn't know.
You're right.
So I've been a member now for 7-8 years. I have learned such a lot about public speaking. And those are skills that I then wanted to share with other people, certainly in my networking, where I get the opportunity to see a lot of people doing presentations. You get the opportunity to do 20-minute presentations at these networking meetings. And a lot of them have really good content, but they just don't know how to present it.
Okay, well, we don't have a lot of time, Marcus, but I'm sure listeners would be really interested if you could give just like one or two things that people really miss, the sort of average lay person who said, oh, I'll give a presentation. What are the kind of things that they're missing that would really spice up their talks?
Okay. Let me just say that on my YouTube channel, which is known as Life Coaching, I've got a series of
Okay, so just like a taster, if you like.
But construction, you've got to have a great story. You've got to have a great beginning. You've got to have some content in the middle that makes sense, and you've got to have a great ending. And you've got to connect the beginning and the end of that story. You need to take people on a journey so that they feel like they've arrived somewhere. You need to vary your voice variation. So many people just speak in a monotone.
Okay.
So you need to use some voice variation. If you've got something sort of a bit exciting to say, you might want to speed your voice up a little bit. If you've got something that's a bit more sensitive, you might just want to lower your voice. Use, even if we're online on Zoom, use your screen as your stage. You could, like I said, I stand up when I speak, but even if you're sat down, move your chair back a bit so that your face isn't, so many people do their talks like this, and then you get these Kermit hands.
Yes.
So even if you don't want to stand up, you can move yourself back a bit further so we can see more of you, and you can start incorporating a bit of body language into what you're saying. So those are just a few of the tips. But don't wander into your talk. Don't use PowerPoint. Don't share your screen unless it's absolutely integral to what you're saying, because at the end of the day, if you're giving a talk, although in our networking group the talks aren't supposed to be a sales pitch, they are, because you're selling yourself. It's your opportunity to demonstrate your expertise. So why hide behind a screen? Why hide behind PowerPoints? Let people see you.
Okay, so you would say that just a person without visual aids is ultimately the most powerful thing? Would you
argue? Absolutely. For a whole bunch of reasons. Firstly, because most of the visual aids I see are totally useless. They add absolutely nothing to the talk people are giving. They are a distraction because people will then read what's on the visual aid, and they stop listening to you. And then they lose what you're saying completely. And if all you're going to do is read what's already on the screen, what's the point? So this is an opportunity to sell yourself. So my clients have to convince me that if they want to use those type of visual aids, that they're absolutely essential to the talk.
Okay. So the power of the spoken word, you're a great advocate of that,
we can achieve so much. We can paint. You've got the whole lexicon of the English language, and you can paint such dramatic pictures. And isn't it great to enable people to use their imagination, to take your words and then use their imagination to construct their own mental vision of what it is that you're talking about?
Yeah. And what about attention span, of an educated, healthy adult? I mean, because you talked about 20-minute presentations. Is that the optimum length? I mean, if it's a very good speech, what's the range that we can talk about?
I don't think there is an optimum. I think it depends on the audience and the circumstance. So at our club, for example,
Yes.
We work on 2-minute impromptu speeches without any preparation.
Right.
I'll go to someone might say to me, okay, Marcus, come out the front and talk to us for 2 minutes about why you've always wanted to be an astronaut. No preparation. So you've got a 2-minute talk. Most of our prepared speeches at club are 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay, so fairly short, in fact. So,
yeah.
I mean, what my interest is the upper end of the scale. Okay, because
okay.
I know you can hold people's attention for a few minutes, but when, in all, what's the word? In all reality, if you like, when, and I've got something important to say. I've got very good content. Okay. And I've got a pretty good audience as well, they're educated, and fairly focused people. So everything's at fairly good level, optimal level. But even then, human nature is limited as to what people can absorb and when they're going to start drifting off. That's my question. How much, what's the sort of, almost like I'm saying, what's the sort of maximum where you can still feel safe that the whole thing's going to go down well?
My talks to the Women's Institutes are an hour long.
An hour? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think it depends on what you've been asked to do.
Right.
One of the very first WI talks that I did, the president, when she phoned me to book me, said, Marcus, we'd like you to talk to us for an hour and we expect to be entertained. So no pressure there then.
Right. Now, when you say an hour, that's before questions. That's an hour of you speaking.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, I have to say, if you can hold people's attention for that long.
Yeah. But again, it depends on the content. So I do that without any visual aids.
Yes. Yeah, that's the other point, with nothing, just speaking.
Yeah. But there's stories from my time in journalism. There's stories from my time working in public relations. It's about involving the audience. It's about, who remembers tin bowls in front of the fire, and so people will put their hands up, and so it's about and it's about working an audience. Part of it is about making eye contact with the audience, so that I'll scan the room, I'll work the room, I make sure I make eye contact, so people feel like you're talking to them. So it's about keeping people involved, having some sort of interaction.
Okay, so that's an integral part of your longer talks. You will be getting people to almost chip in. I mean, are you asking them sometimes to actually say something more than "yes, I remember"? I mean, would you actually?
Yeah, I might do so. Early into my talk, I mean, I'm living in South Wales now, so I'm talking to women's institutes in Wales, and I'll say to them, you might notice from my accent that I'm not Welsh, I'm a Londoner. Anyone else here from? Invariably, someone, okay, what part of London are you from? Oh, right, yeah, okay. I'm a north. Oh, you're south of the river. That south of the river is like a foreign country. So you have that sort of dialogue, that sort of interaction.
Yes.
In one of my jobs, I worked with Anne Robinson. Who remembers Anne Robinson? Or there was this journalist in the office, and she was young, and she smoked like a trooper, and she drank like a trooper, and she swore like a trooper. Anyone want to guess who she might be? And people will throw out some names. Yeah, you've got it, Anne Robinson. Early, scary lady even then. So it's about being up for it. It's about sounding enthusiastic. It's about involving your audience. But one of my Toastmasters colleagues, for me to progress through my level, had to come and, if you like, witness me doing a talk to an outside organisation. And he said, Marcus, I've seen you do that same talk as a 5-minute talk, as a 20-minute presentation, and as an hour-long talk. So it's the same talk.
Yeah, right.
It's about what you put in and what you leave out.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Great.
So,
Okay. Well, just to conclude, do you want to tell where listeners can sort of find your tips, advice, guidance for these?
Yeah, my YouTube channel. So if you go onto YouTube and you look for Novus Life Coaching, that's my YouTube channel, and my top 10 speaking tips are all there as short 2 or 3 minute individual videos.
Okay, so Novus Speaking, is that right?
Novus Life Coaching.
Oh, Novus Life Coaching. Okay.
Yeah, NOVUS.
Okay, so if people want to get Marcus's tips, that's the place to go. Well, thanks very much, Marcus. For me, that's been very interesting, a real eye-opener, and sort of slightly inspiring, maybe, that, perhaps I could have a look at this, how to speak, structure things and so on.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Peter, and as always, it's been great fun.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, we'll see you on the next edition, and everybody else who cares to come along.